didn't talked about at that time is the financial crisis. So should we start with this barrier and talk about, are we believing here in this panel? And by the way, if you ever have something to put on the panel, just jump into the discussion here on this late night talk. Is the financial crisis somehow impacting the spending on mobile advertising? Or we start with your view, Tarik, as a consultant.
Yeah, it is definitely impacting the advertising world without any doubt. So the automatic response by advertising media agencies is that they have less money to invest in new business models, and to try new things. I think the mobile industry should take it from the different perspective. Is that the crisis is an opportunity because the needs of advertisers are basically focused at more effective usage of their advertising budget, and mobile with the mentioned elements of targeting and opt-in and less waste. It's basically meeting those advertising needs. But it takes quite some effort to convince advertisers. But I think we shouldn't take for granted that advertisers say we have less money to spend. Great, it's an opportunity.
Gerhard, do you have any experience with this in the business?
Yeah, basically the same direction that agencies cover their knowledge gap, I would say, by the financial crisis in addition and say, okay, well, budgets are so tight, we focus on already known ones, be it in the traditional areas such as TV, radio and online. The problem, and Tarik said it, is completely a different one. Mobile should be the opportunity because mobile is 24/7 everywhere around. You can target and you reach customers that are not in the traditional media any longer, or not very long time spendings in these traditional media. However, the problem is, and I stressed it in my presentation already, that most of the advertising agencies, they don't really understand the mobile business, and they fear if they offer a customer in these economic times a campaign that in the end probably doesn't bring the effect they promised beforehand, then they might lose the customer towards another agency. That's the problem.
And we have, I think, a good proof of concept here that advertisers still spend much money, like the recent news from Land Rover and Ford was that they spent 1.6 million just on mobile advertising this year. Do you want to add something?
Yeah, I think it's definitely the crisis affect everything, but there is no doubt that advertising will happen. The question is who is going to win this, right? And what we're seeing in the market right now, I believe that actually crisis affect who is going to win that, because there are two major forces, I believe, and of course it's different in different geographic areas. It's a little bit different in Western Europe, Eastern Europe, US and Asia, but in the general, there is companies like Google, Microsoft and Yahoo that wants to present it that, you know, the mobile advertising is going to be similar to the internet advertising. It's just about the size of the screen, but we could apply the same methods and it just could migrate what we have in the internet and make it successful in mobile. And by that, you know, move the operators to the model of just providing the bandwidth and the access. And there are some operators just agree or disagree with that actually doing that. They taking step back because of the crisis and just providing the access and generate money from that, because it's difficult for them to spend money right now. So I think the biggest impact that crisis will have is on shifting the chances of operator to win this battle and to generate money on the mobile advertising, because they have to spend money now if they want to have a dominant place in this value chain. If they're not going to spend the money now, we will see in 2, 3, 4 years when the crisis going into the better direction, maybe it's 1 year going to the better direction, that Google and Yahoo and Microsoft will dominate this space. And we see that Google continue to invest and spend money and shows the excellent financial results. So it will change the landscape, that's what I believe is.
You said in your briefing to this panel also that there is a lack of understanding and confidence between advertisers and operators.
Yeah,
well, on this?
Yeah, I think Jonathan made a couple of excellent comments, that there are some others, but a lot of time, it's just totally different language, right? So I was in the meetings that I was So like talk about the very good subject which is called profiling, right? So, well, the operator could say, well, of course we have profile. We know this is the customer, the roamers, they spend this amount of money, this is how many SMSs do they do. That's not exactly the profiling that advertising means, right? There is a barrier of language, there is barrier of understanding. As a result of that, there is difficult to commit to spend money on this, right? And it is probably the first time in the history, at least from my experience, that now operator is actually a vendor, right? So I am working for the vendor, so when we come into the operators with our customer, we're trying to explain them how our system works in order to make them successful. Now operators should explain to the advertisers how they're working in order advertisers to spend money on this, because this is where the money came from. It is a shifting of paradigm, and the language is a barrier, definitely. So of course it's different once again in the different regions. Even within the Western Europe, you might see it different in Austria in comparison to Germany. But there is obviously a barrier that if operators want to be successful, they have to do something about this. Once again, this will happen, as Jonathan said before. It's one day it will happen. It's maybe one day in 6 months, 9 months, 2 years. The question: who will do this, and who will win this?
I don't think there will be a single winning formula. I think in different regions and different countries there will be different business models. I don't think it would make sense if operators would fight Google and Yahoo and Microsoft because they will definitely be there and get a part of the cake. The best thing the operators can do is to use and exploit the mobile channels which they own, as for instance the messaging services, as for instance notification services, as voice services, where they are in control, where third parties cannot go around them. So that those services again also have a lot of opportunities for advertising, as long as they get the permission from the customer. And they are in a good position because they've been basically doing mobile marketing for several years for their own services. They use SMS, they use outbound calls to get consumers to agree on their mobile propositions, so they can do the same thing to get it for mobile advertising.
We have a disagreement on that. I do believe that the mobile operators should be active in this space. They should invest. There was rumors about 7 months ago about very big operator in the United States acquiring Yahoo. Right, that's probably not going to be last. So I do have, they have a power, they have a money, they have a knowledge of the consumer, and I think if they want to, to keep the ARPU they had 3 years ago or 5 years ago, there is no way but to go to the media business for them. And it could be done by different ways, acquiring knowledge via acquisition, merging the forces. There are different ways around. But if they will just, stay on the sides of providing the access to their mobile phones and keeping the network, they will not see the revenues that they used to it.
No, I'm not saying using the extra. I'm saying they should basically strengthen the relationship with consumers, or basically tell consumers, apart from getting mobile services from us, you can also get relevant, personalized offers if you want them. You give us your preferences, we make sure you get the offers you want, when you want them, how often you want them, and for what kind of incentive.
I think you're both saying the same. I think you're both saying the same thing actually in a slightly different way. And surely what would happen in any type of business maturity is that there'll be a kind of a division moving forward. There'll be some operators that get it and become the way they need to be, and Oleg's company amongst others, and many that were able to enhance in doing that. And then there'll be other operators who just become even dumber pipes. And so it's kind of like rather than kind of who's going to win and who's not, the new market will end up with those that get it and those that don't. And there's not necessarily, as I said to one of the top 3 operators yesterday evening, or Friday, said, there's not necessarily a bad business in the dumb pipe stuff. So, while he's still got a job, he's still going to be making some money. So, I guess you either create for today or you create for the future. And I think we can all choose which future we want. You either make a mark and create a purple cow, or we monetize the dumb pipe. Let the top players roll. What?
Yes, for fully agree. Thanks for this. This was exactly what I wanted just said. But anyhow,